Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Hello, sisters, and welcome to Go Solo Live. It's Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to sit back and grab a cup of coffee and enjoy my conversation with Laura Kay as she shares about how she used solo travel to become invincible. Thanks for joining us today, Laura. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Jennifer.
All right, well, we're going to dive right in and get into your story. I can't wait to hear all about it. Now, we had a minute to talk off the air. And so I know that there's this big trip that you just did recently, and it was momentous and life-changing.
Indeed, it was.
And then you mentioned how you've done some solo trips before that were a little bit like your baby steps.
Exactly.
So before we jump into the momentous amount, I want you to share with us a little bit about those baby steps. Can you give me a couple examples of what you've done?
Okay. Well, my baby steps in the past were typically sort of an escape. They weren't, sometimes they were planned. A lot of times it was just kind of an impromptu to sort of just get away. And what I would do is I would drive approximately 2 hours north of the Twin Cities and to Lake Superior. And I would rent this divine 1-bedroom, sort of a townhouse type thing, where there was a hot tub and they had a restaurant on the grounds, and I loved it. Totally by myself. I would go on walks. I would sit in the sauna. I would go in the hot tub. It was so indulgent.
Indulgent, but also it just sounds like a wonderful form of self-care.
Yes.
So you knew when you reached your limit that it was time, and you had created an opportunity. Did you go to the same place each time?
I actually did. Yes.
Okay.
I sort of had my favorite spot in my favorite room too. So, and I tried to go at times of the year where it was very quiet as well. As you can imagine, in the winter in Minnesota, not a lot of people want to go even further north.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. So and how long have you been doing those kind of trips? How many years?
I would say they probably started in 2011. And it's funny because they definitely progressed, where first I would just go for a night. And then I realized that, a night is not long enough. And so then I'd squeak in 2 nights, and I'd feel sort of guilty for leaving the family. At that time I was married, so I had my daughter and then my stepchildren. And so I'd feel sort of guilty being gone for 2 nights. And then it just morphed into 3 nights. Why even go if you can't go for 3 nights?
I love it. And at that time you were married?
I was.
So
yes, I was married until 2014. Mm-hmm.
How did that conversation go at home when you're like, I gotta go?
Thankfully, very well. I think, as I said at the beginning, it started off as an escape. And I think that my husband at the time realized, okay, mama needs a break. And if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And so I often talk about this when I'm speaking, because I say that really when I came home, I was a better person for my family. And not only for myself, because I felt just renewed and refreshed and rested, but for the family, I was much better in my role as wife and mother as well.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Well, and it's great that he was supportive of that, because you're right. I mean, and he was right. If you don't have that time to take care of yourself, what good are you to everybody else?
Right. And I think too that he saw the difference when I returned. And so he realized that my little trips were also a benefit to him as well.
There's a lot of women who feel guilty when they take the time to do that. What do you recommend for women who are just struggling with this conflict between I need to do this for me, but I shouldn't do it for my family?
Well, I think that the first time is the hardest because I think a lot of times it just seems like this big sort of, I don't know, big no-no that we shouldn't do. And, we're sort of taught, unfortunately, by a lot of our role models growing up as women that, your job is to sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. And so thinking of yourself is not okay. And so I think that just actually doing it, it's more of you just have to get out and do it and experience it, because I can only put into so many words the gift that it is. And I will say though, that it is sort of weird when you first get up there and wherever you're going and you unpack and then you sit down and you realize that you don't have anybody to tend to. There's no spouse, there's no children, there's no pets. It's just you. And so there's this sort of realization of, oh my goodness, what do I do with myself? And it's amazing though how quickly you can find something to do with yourself.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, so tell me a little bit about where you were at in your life when you decided to embark on this bigger trip.
Well, I was in a place where I would like to move at some point to a warmer climate. And I've always really enjoyed San Diego, which is where I went. And I had this vision in my head of myself there. And I visited there several times. And so I had this vision of myself there. And I was talking to a friend one day and she said, why don't you just go and live that vision? And then I thought, wow, okay. And I just took a leap of faith at that moment. I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, but if I ever want that vision to come true, I sort of have to immerse myself in these kind of experiences.
Well, so you got support and encouragement.
I did.
What was, if there was, what was any hesitation?
Well, I think the hesitation was, what am I going to do out there? Am I sort of crazy for doing this? And, and I could I maybe invite a friend, or should I, think about doing it around my daughter's, Christmas break? She's in college. And so that was sort of running through my head. And then of course you think, do I need it? I think that we're taught that, we should really need something before we do it. And so there was weighing that too. Like, do I really need this? At the end of the day, nobody needs to go, on vacation. It's just a desire.
Right.
So I think those were some of the hesitations that ran through my mind.
Okay. So what did you do to prepare for the trip? What were some of the steps that you took to make sure that you were going to have a solid, good experience, whatever you wanted that experience to be?
Yes. Well, I made sure that where I was staying was a safe place that I knew I would feel safe in. So I did end up staying at an Airbnb that had security, secured entry and that type of thing. And I did rent a car, and I went back and forth about renting a car, but I sort of just wanted to have that freedom of being able to take care of myself and go here and there. So I did that. And then I would say that I purposefully, and this was purposeful, I didn't do much planning. I kind of wanted it just to be organic. So other than really sort of, because for me, when I'm somewhere, it's very important for me to be comfortable. So I wanted somewhere that was comfortable, Jennifer. I didn't want to stay in, like you can stay in an Airbnb in someone's house or that kind of thing. And, it's less expensive. And for my experience, I like to have that alone space and that alone time. So I just made sure that I was really honoring myself about what I needed as this a trip, progressed.
That's awesome. And we'll come back to that idea of how planful should you be, because it sounds like as you were going through, you were making really conscious decisions about, what do I need? How do I take care of me? And could I do it a different way? Like, you could have done it without a car, but you were also you honored your needs and said, okay, but that's not how I'm going to choose to do this trip this time.
Exactly. Yes.
So, what were some of the purpose and intention that you had for going on this sojourn? Because this wasn't just a 2 or 3 day getaway.
No.
This was, and you didn't take, you didn't drive somewhere pretty close to home that you could be home as quickly as needed.
Right.
What was your purpose and intention?
My purpose and intention was to really immerse myself, as I said, in this vision that I've had for some time of me living somewhere and just being fabulous, of course. But there was an essence in me that I can sense that is that woman that I'm growing toward. But I felt like the journey for me to get to her would be much less if I actually went to the place that I feel that holds that for me, that there's a beautiful energy there, and that having this sort of courageous experience where I don't have a lot of plans and I really am kind of in I don't want to say a foreign country because it's obviously not, but I'm not in my comfort zone. Like I say, I go up to the same place every time I go up north for that vacation. And so here I was being courageous, and that was part of this vision that I see.
So give me some examples of what courageous meant for you on this trip.
As far as what I did?
Yep.
Oh my God. Well, just going on the trip. How about that?
Yes.
I don't know if you want to talk about that or not.
Tell me.
Okay.
Tell me all.
Okay. Well, so the night before the trip, I hadn't packed yet, and it was about 7 p.m. and I was thinking, okay, well, you might want to throw a couple things in a suitcase here. You're going to be gone for 10 days. And so I found myself thinking, I don't think I want to go on this trip. And so I said to myself, all right, Laura, well, if you don't want to, you can absolutely cancel the flight. You're going to take a hit, but whatever. You can cancel your reservation for everything else, and you can just sit home for the next 10 days. So you can do that. So how does that feel?
So you gave yourself permission to say, I'm out.
Yep, to say, no, I'm not doing it. And so then I sat in that for about 10 seconds, and I said, no, I have to go. I have to go. I want to go. So it was, once I made that sort of that recommitment to it, I was on my way. And so courageous things that I had to do. Oh my goodness. It felt like every day there was just courageous things to do. I mean, there's a little bit, for me, there's a certain level of discomfort in walking into a restaurant and sauntering up to the bar by yourself.
Yes.
Or, sometimes even just sitting at a table by yourself. And I've actually become more comfortable with that. But here it was an every meal thing.
Yes.
And so there were a few nights where I thought to myself, I could just have Uber Eats bring me something, or I could just, I could go get something to go. And I said to myself, no, I am going to go and I am going to sit at the bar by myself. And this is what I'm going to do. And I have to say, and this is just over the course of my whole trip, every single time that I went out of my comfort zone, I was rewarded. It was just magical. I would meet when I'd go to the bar, I would meet the nicest person or people. The bartender would surprise me with a free cocktail or glass of wine or appetizer or something. I mean, it was just, I never knew what was going to happen, but whenever I sort of forced myself, it unfolded beautifully.
Well, and you don't know what's going to happen, but you're open to the fact that something is going to happen.
Yes.
And it possibly could be good.
Right.
It is entirely possible that good will come of this situation.
Exactly.
Now, you said that one of the things that you did to really capture this trip was to actually make notes throughout about some of those good occurrences that happened. Can you tell us a little bit about what that, I mean, that's actually a part of your regular personal practice in a way. Can you share that with us a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I do is it's sort of a morning and evening ritual. So the first thing I do, I call it the accountability journal, is I talk about how I want to feel that day. So for instance, some of the ways I wanted to feel, and I've got my notes in front of me, I just found them, are flowing, adventurous, confident, creative, relaxed, blissful. So I mean, I had so many good things going. And so then I start off with a daily mantra, which most often is today is the day of my amazing good fortune. And then I talk about what my top 3 priorities are for the day, what would make the day absolutely fabulous. And then I write one sentence of what I'm grateful for. So that's the morning. So I would always, I would think about if I did have any plans, what I wanted the day to sort of look like or what would make the day fabulous. And it's so interesting how so many of those things, even if I didn't know that they were going to happen, came true. Because in the evening then, Jennifer, I would write down, I have a little box for pleasures experienced and gifts received. And I am not kidding you. Every single night of my vacation, that box was overflowing. I didn't have enough room for it. And then I write, what did I do well? And then how could I have made the day better? So I just sort of reflect a little bit on that. But I mean, the things that happen to me are just so, so beautiful. And these experiences that I would have where I would meet some, I'm single now, and I would meet this handsome, tall, dark, and handsome stranger at the bar who, was very charming. And it was just so nice to converse with him. I mean, just different and intriguing experiences that I wouldn't normally have.
Did you feel, so one of the things that I talk to people about is the ability to, as you're stepping out of that comfort zone, to start to create the experience that you want. And you certainly were going into it with many intentions on a daily basis. But, when I think about some of the women who maybe haven't been dating in a while or haven't necessarily felt that kind of attention,
mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit about both, the good as well as any anxiety that might have brought up for you, being away from your comfort zone?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 2 sides of the coin, but would you mind delving into that a little bit further?
As to how I just managed the whole situation?
How you managed and how you felt about it. The good, the flattery as well as the maybe the freaking out a little bit. I don't know.
Well, thankfully, again, I always want to be safe, but I did have, 2 different encounters when I was there. And, the first one was a gentleman who he wanted to sit at a table. And then I came in shortly thereafter and said, is there room at the bar? And then suddenly he wanted to sit at the bar too. So that was, I thought, I don't think that was on or by accident, so I sort of had an inkling, but he was a little bit quiet. And by this point, I had been there for a few days, Jennifer, and I had people reach out to me while I was sitting there. And so, you know what? I just became, just very, very confident. And I struck up a conversation with him. So,
nice.
Yes, in that case, it was me striking up a conversation with him. And that's bold of me. And so we just, started having some small talk and different things. And he was in town for business. But I would say that as long as you're in a public place and you're being thoughtful about the sort of details that you're releasing and that type of thing, and which I am for those ladies that are ever in this situation, I would say just enjoy it, because it's almost like this exotic stranger that sort of just sails through your life. I mean, he's not going to be here. He's not going to be here for more than, half an hour sitting here at the bar having a cocktail and chatting. And so let him just sail through like the sort of the mysterious stranger that he is, and just enjoy that 30 minutes and enjoy the attention and the connection, and let yourself get lost in it. That's what I would say. And the other experience that I had was very similar, where I am obviously very responsible with the kind of things that I put out, the information that I put out. So I keep it all kind of above board. But otherwise, then I just kind of enjoy getting to know this person.
Absolutely. How comfortable were you about sharing that you were at least solo in that moment? Because some people like to say the cover story is they're meeting a friend later or things like that. Again, you're in the US, so there's probably a different comfort level there. But can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I think, I luckily I can read people's energy very well. So I'm very lucky that I have that gift. But I think that you can gauge from the person, and also it does have something to do with the establishment you're in, and sort of also the neighborhood, the surroundings, and that
Absolutely.
type of thing, the time of day, and how close you are to where you're staying and that type of thing. So I had been in this neighborhood, for several days. I was within a few blocks of where I was staying.
Sure.
They left at different times than I did. So I think that it really is, you can share, but you have to be aware. And so I think that, that's just how it is in our society, is that you have to be aware. But I think too, that if you're comfortable and you are secure and you've set it up like I did, where I was in, a good place and a secure place, and I was in a public place as well when these things occurred, I would just say, just have a good time. Yeah, have a great time.
Absolutely. I love it. And that goes kind of like with your one of your words of flowing. You're just letting what is happening come to you. What were the most challenging parts?
For me, one of the most challenging parts was in the evening, going out for dinner. And I sort of touched on that, where I would think, because people might find this hard to believe, but I'm slightly introverted. And so it really does take a vast amount of courage for me to just, like I said, saunter up to the bar. So sometimes I would think, I'm not sure that I want to do this. It'd be so much easier just to order in. But I did summon the courage, because I just thought, I know that something great is going to happen. And so that was something. And then I think just the feeling into where you are. I mean, you obviously you're somewhere that you've never stayed before. And so you have to have that little bit of time in the beginning to get comfortable with your surroundings and learn how to get in and out of your building, for example, and where's the nearest 7-Eleven, or what, where am I going to go tonight for dinner? Where's this? Where's that? And so that was a little bit, I had to take that time to get sort of that settled feeling where, okay, I know where all of it is. I can find it. And so then that felt better as well.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So tell me a little bit about, if you were talking to someone who has never gone on their first solo trip, and they're hesitant because it is this big, wide, scary world out there for many people, right?
Yes.
So what are some of the things that, you would let run through your mind to help encourage and support you when you started to feel like it was a big, scary world?
Well, I would first of all, I would remind myself of how proud I was going to be of myself on the other side of this. So I knew every time, okay, if I do this, I know I'm going to be really proud of myself when I get home tonight. If I go out for dinner, I know I'm going to be really proud of myself. If I go explore the neighborhood, even though I've got no idea where I am, I know I'll feel proud of myself. And even going back to the night when I didn't want to go, I wasn't sure that I wanted to go on the trip, knowing that if I did go, that I would be proud of myself. So I think it's really powerful to remind yourself that no matter what happens, that on the other side of it, you'll say, I'm so glad that I did that. I'm really proud of myself that I did that.
Do you feel a little bit invincible having done it?
Yes. Yes. In fact, I leave in 3 days to go on a 7-day solo vacation again. So yes,
What?
yes, I know, insane. So you do, there's something there, there really is something within you that changes when you know that you can sort of land anywhere and be okay.
That's awesome. Where are you going next?
Well, I'm going I'm going to LA and San Diego this time. So I land in LA, and then I've never been to LA. So it's going to be a totally new, again, readjustment into, okay, get the car, find the hotel.
You're going to drive in LA.
I'm going to drive in LA. Yes. And then, like a crazy person, I'm going to drive from LA down to San Diego.
That is a survival adventure in and of itself.
Yes, it is. But I can tell you that since I went to San Diego 3 months ago, that I have all these friends that I met when I was there. Honestly, that I'm friends with on Facebook and different things. And so I have reached out to many of them to say, hey, I'm coming back. Let's get together. Let's reconnect. And so my calendar while I'm there is actually filling up now because, again, I would have never met these people if I didn't go out of my comfort zone. And so now it's like I have this new little hub of friends that's waiting for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. I leave for LA tomorrow morning for a training out there. So I understand the intimidation factor of LAX and driving around there and things like that. So yeah. I give you a round of applause for that endeavor.
Thank you.
You know, for a first-time person driving in a new city like that, mm-hmm. and driving alone. Like, I know yes. GPS can be a great navigator, but there's nothing like having somebody else around that, yes. Can help spot things and things like that. So there is a whole confidence interval that comes with the driving.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So my podcast guests, my listeners are not going to be able to see what I see when I'm watching Laura, because we do this interview via video. And as she's talking, the expression of confidence is really strong, but I really look at her and I get this sense that she was a pretty kick butt person before. And I've known Laura for just over a year. But I get this sense now that she is just freaking invincible. Are you radiating that, or is it just me?
Well, thank you for noticing, darling. I am radiating. And actually, it's interesting because since I took my trip to San Diego, I have had just a different essence about me that's spread out to my life in general. So it's spread out to my business, for instance. And I just feel more energetic and powerful there. And just personal relationships, and also taking care of myself, because what a great way to take care of yourself other than take yourself on a 10-day vacation where you have so many interesting, adventures and meet so many new people. I mean, so I really do feel like that 10 days changed my life.
So we'll get into a little bit about what's coming up for your business and things like that. But you have your next solo trip already planned, which is cool. Yes. And you're going to do some reconnecting. What else is coming in your future?
What else is coming in my future? Well, I am planning to move to San Diego this year. So it's very, very exciting. And so and I can honestly say, Jennifer, that would have never come up had I not taken that trip. And so what a blessing that trip was, because it will end up altering my life in ways I can't even imagine at this point.
So what's led you to the decision to relocate out there?
Well, I feel like, first of all, I love the energy there. I've loved it since the first time I visited when I was 18. And so it's just, there's something about it that feels like home to me when I'm there. I mean, even when I'm coming in on the plane and I'm about to land, I say, I'm home. And so it feels like home. And right now, as I said, I'm also in a position where I'm a single gal and my daughter is in her second year of college, not coming home for summer this year. So, excuse me, let me get a Kleenex.
Yes, right?
because she won't be home for summer. And so she has her life, in Chicago. And so the way that I look at it is it's just my opportunity is now. My opportunity is now. So
That's awesome.
I'm going to grab it.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So I do want to make sure that people understand a little bit about the work that you do, because I think that is also integral to not only who you are, but what's inspiring you to take these next steps. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Well, I am the badass empowerment diva at Pink Spark Life, where I help women who are tired of freaking vanilla to embrace their inner badass and find bliss and balance.
Okay, that's
Yes.
awesome.
Thank you.
You have some cool programs that are coming up, and I want to make sure people will know where to find you. This will all be in the show notes as well. But how can people connect with you?
Well, they can find me on my website at pinksparklife.com. And so I've got a lot of different blogs, different information, and of course, my newest program as well.
Tell us a little bit about that program, if you would.
Well, I'd be happy to. It's part of my journey here. That's why it's called the 22-day quantum journey. And so I have always been a serious science geek ever since I was a little girl, when it wasn't cool for little girls to be science geeks. But anyway, as the whole quantum physics movement has started taking shape, I've been more and more interested in it. And so I developed a program where I take these intricate scientific, formulas and experiments and different interpretations, which are like mind-boggling. And I just break them down into an easy to digest, fabulous way to unleash the magic of quantum physics in your life without having to go to a math class or a science class. And so it's called the 22-day quantum journey. And every single day, the lovely ladies who purchase it receive an email from me with either video, audio, sometimes it is just words, but they're all really high energy, and they show the way that quantum physics can work in your life to bring about what you want. And it's just really a joyous journey, and it's super fun, and it's also very easy. And so I am loving it.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So Laura, as we look at wrapping up our conversation today,
Yes.
what was your biggest lesson that you learned from going on your solo trip?
My biggest lesson was I can do this. And so it was really a lesson in inner strength. I can do this. And like I said, I had my moments of doubt, but it truly is the growth of invincibility inside me that occurred. It was like I was watering my seed of invincibility when I was on my vacation, and it was beautiful. And now it's sprouted into this plant. So it started there.
That's awesome. That strength is carrying you through a lot of stuff as you go to make these new changes in your life, because there will be those scary moments that come up again. But one of the things that I love about solo travel is that you can reflect back on, I always would think that this is hard. Something is really hard, right? And then when I think about some of the hard things that I've overcome in my life, including some solo travel where I was scared and things like that, and I'd say, well, I've done hard things before. I don't know if this is harder, but hard then I think changes perspective as you get distance from it. So it may have been hard in the moment or super hard in the moment, and now it's only sort of hard because you're reflecting on it.
Right.
But to be able to say, I've done hard things before, I can probably do this too.
Yes.
I love it.
It's wonderful.
Laura, thank you so much for spending time with us today, and all the best as you go on your next trip and create your future out in your San Diego new location.
Thank you, darling. You can come anytime.
Trust me. I'm all about it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Laura shared with us today? It's important to remember that you can take the baby steps, you can take the big trip, but you need to take care of yourself. Well, sisters, we've reached the end of today's episode, but the conversation doesn't have to end there. Go to www.transformviatravel.com to join the Go Solo Sisterhood Facebook community and share your thoughts. If you like what you've heard, please invite your friends to listen to Go Solo Live. If you want to be a guest, reach out to me directly at jennifer@transformviatravel.com. Until next time, remember to go solo, not alone.